Good evening. Today is Tuesday, October 19th, 2021 at 6 p.m. This is the Hanson Board of Selectmen meeting. Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Weeks, do you mind doing this week's announcements?
Not at all. All right, so announcements. Camp Kiwanee Halloween Spooktacular on October 30th from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. It will be featuring a pumpkin walk, story time with Big Joe, hot cocoa station, s'mores, arts and crafts, and a haunted house. Admission is free and costumes are encouraged. If needed, the rain date is October 31st. We're looking for citizens at large to become members of the newly revitalized Bylaws Review Committee. Volunteer applications may be found on the town website, www.hanson-ma.gov, or by calling Lisa in the Selectmen's office at 781-293-2131. Volunteers are also needed on the following committees: the Bylaws Review Committee, Capital Improvement Committee, Conservation Commission, Cultural Council, Disabilities, Facebook Upkeep Committee, Highway Building Committee, Historical Commission, Memorial Day Patriotic Observance, Memorial Field Trustees, Nathaniel Thomas Mill Committee, Parks and Fields Committee, and the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. And we have upcoming meetings: Board of Selectmen November 2nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. and Board of Selectmen November 16th, 2021 at 6 p.m. That is it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So first thing on our agenda tonight is voting boundaries of the new 2020 town precincts effective January 1st, 2022. And Madam Clerk.
So we do this every 10 years with the census. You guys weren't here.
Do you mind just speaking into the podium microphones? Sorry.
I do not know.
Just because our speaker in the middle doesn't work anymore.
Well, Jean's going to be the pointer today.
She's your banner.
You guys have one of these? Did you get
Yes. Yep.
Yes, it's
So
in
you
your
can read
packets.
along.
Yep.
All right, Jean, you ready?
Yeah.
Hanson Precinct 1. Of all the portions of Plymouth County bounded and described as follows. Beginning at the point of intersection of Whitman-Hanson Town Line and East Bridgewater-Hanson Town Line, and proceeding easterly along Whitman-Hanson Town Line to the Rockland-Hanson Town Line, and proceeding easterly along Rockland-Hanson Town Line to the Hanover-Hanson Town Line, and proceeding easterly along the Hanover-Hanson Town Line to Indian Head Brook, and proceeding easterly along Indian Head Brook to the power line, and proceeding westerly along the power line to Brook Bend Road, and proceeding southerly along Brook Bend Road to Brook Street, and proceeding easterly along Brook Street to Indian Head Brook, and proceeding southerly along Indian Head Brook to Gorwin Drive, and proceeding westerly along Gorwood Drive to Liberty Street, proceeding westerly along Liberty Street to County Road, and proceeding westerly along County Road to West Washington Street, and proceeding westerly along West Washington Street to East Bridgewater-Hanson Town Line, and proceeding northerly along East Bridgewater-Hanson Town Line to the point of beginning. And that will be the new Precinct 1.
Okay.
Hanson Precinct 2. Of all the portions of Plymouth County bounded and described as follows. Beginning at the point of intersection of High Street and Main Street, and proceeding northerly along High Street to Liberty Street, and we lost? We started the beginning point, High Street and Main Street. That's all right. That's all right. Proceeding northerly along High Street and Liberty Street, and proceeding easterly along Liberty Street to Gorwin Drive, and proceeding northerly along Gorwin Drive to Indian Head Brook, and proceeding northerly along Indian Head Brook to Brook Street, and proceeding westerly along Brook Street to Brook Bend Road, and proceeding northerly along Brook Bend Road to the power line, and proceeding easterly along the power line to Indian Head Brook, and proceeding northerly along Indian Head Brook to the Hanover-Hanson Town Line, and proceeding easterly along Hanover-Hanson Town Line to the Pembroke-Hanson Town Line, and proceeding southerly along the Pembroke-Hanson Town Line to Main Street, and proceeding westerly along Main Street to the point of beginning. And that is your precinct 2. You ready? For precinct 3. Of all the portions of Plymouth County bounded and described as follows, beginning at point of intersection of West Washington Street and East Bridgewater Hanson Town Line. Do you get the beginning?
No.
Okay, so West Washington, which is here,
Yeah, okay.
and
Right
East
here.
Bridgewater,
Yeah,
yeah? Okay, so that should be,
I'm all set.
that's all right, so that's our beginning. West Washington Street and East Bridgewater Hanson Town Line, and proceeding northerly along West Washington to County Road, and proceeding easterly along County Road to High Street, and proceeding southerly along High Street to Main Street, and proceeding easterly along Main Street to the Pembroke Hanson Town Line, proceeding westerly along Pembroke Hanson Town Line to the Halifax Hanson Town Line. Got it?
I think you're going the opposite
Down.
way. You're
Down.
going down.
Yep, right there.
Go down. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, proceeding westerly along Hanson and Halifax Town Line to the East Bridgewater Hanson Town Line.
Yeah. Now you're good. Now you're good.
And proceeding northerly, I knew you should have read, and proceeding northerly along the East Bridgewater Hanson Town Line to the point of beginning.
There you
And
go.
those are our 3 precincts, and we do have a little bit of change in them. Our population has grown according to the 2020 census to 10,639. What I have is a 10,100, but they actually go knocking on doors. I rely on people actually answering me. So that's the difference. And we try to keep them in close numbers. They're a little over 3,000 in each precinct. Once we hit 4,000, we need new precincts. We need to add. So the next clerk can go out with that. Because we do not have the money to have another precinct. So hopefully that won't happen. If you want to look at the old precincts, I do have it. And I do have to tell you, another thing, you guys looked in there, there's stuff in here for this thing. We're also,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
the demographics you all have. We're voting on that as well tonight. Okay? So, I just want to let you know that we do have an issue with our precincts because we are going to be a split district. I don't know if anyone's heard about that.
Yep.
So we're going to be 5th.
Just for,
6th.
just for people at home that don't know what it is.
The state representative, who is our Josh Cutler right now, and we are part of Halifax, Pembroke, and Duxbury. We do not have a split district right now, but we will. We're going to be part of precinct 1 is going to be part of the 5th Plymouth, which is going to be with Rockland, Hanover, Norwell, and that, yeah, so part of Norwell, part of Hanson. And then these 2 and 3 are still going to remain in the 6th district. The thing that's unfortunate is that the legislature right now is voting on the 2010 map. So that's problematic, because this section right here of this little loop right here, which is going to be in 3, is now in 1. So they're voting on the old map. So these people here are going to be in this district, but they're going to be in this precinct. It's a nightmare for us as far as ballots and elections.
So what
hopefully,
streets would that be, Beth?
It is Independence Valley Forge, Holmes Terrace, the easterly section of Holmes Street,
Okay.
and this part up here in precinct 1 and 2, right now, let me see, right now, this section right here, Winter Street, Christopher Lane, Harvey Circle is in 2, it's going to 1, but they're voting them, they're still in 2 as far as they're concerned.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be an issue. I don't even know how we would do that, the logistic of it is crazy. So I've been talking to Josh Cutler today, and hopefully they will fix it before they vote, and they'll wait for all of us to finish our maps. Every town and city in Massachusetts has to be done by the 30th of October, so they can vote on the maps. But I think the legislature is voting next week before all the towns finish, and that's why they're using the 2010 maps instead of the 2020 maps. So hopefully they'll help us with that.
Government at its finest.
So you do have your motion, so someone has a motion to vote tonight, did you give them that, Lisa? That vote?
Oh, hold on.
I do not have the motion.
Let's see. see a motion, but Lisa's got one.
Perfect. Vice Chair, do you mind reading that?
I'd like to make a motion for the Board of Selectmen to vote to accept the new 2020 precincts. We move to accept as presented by the town clerk, the 2020 re-precinct plan for the town of Hanson.
Do I have a second? All right, all in favor? 5-0.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, people, to sign that we have done this tonight, so I can send it along to the state. Sign, I have two of them, so I can.
That covers both, Beth?
Yes, it covers
Okay.
everything. It says the
Okay.
plan, not just the map.
Okay.
This is part of the plan, so that covers everything that we presented tonight.
Beth, could I ask you again, I know you said it earlier, Precinct 1 is going to be part of Hanover, Rockland,
Norwell.
Norwell, but not Whitman.
No, Whitman's different,
Okay.
okay? They're going to be part of the fifth plan. Right now, we're part of six, all of us are part of sixth plan district.
Okay. I'm just concerned for the citizens up at that end of the town because they'll have a different rep.
Right.
And Hanover's a big town. Rockland is still bigger than we are. I'll have to see if I know somebody that lives in that district and maybe
Well,
talk to
I
them.
think that this board should try to meet with the new representative, because just because we're gonna be split doesn't mean that
Right.
we're not gonna expect to have
Representation.
representation from both, and that we can compel people to work together if needed. I think they will anyway. I don't think they need to be compelled to, but we need them rowing in the same direction,
Well-
for funding and stuff like that.
Okay, so Laura, I'll ask you this question. Joe, what precinct do you live in?
I'm in 3.
Laura?
Ditto.
Matt?
3.
Kenny?
3.
I'm in
We're in
1.
1. Yeah.
So we have one representative on the board for a third of the town.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, but we're not, that's not how we're organized.
Right,
you
no,
know.
and I get that, but it would be possible to have no representatives on this board from Precinct 1.
But that could have always been the case,
Right, but
Even when
Precinct
it was
1,
all, you
up
know-
until,
yeah.
up until October 30th, was always part of whatever representative we
No,
had.
no, because there's been iterations before where.
10 years ago, when
Yeah,
I was first clerk, we were split.
right, yeah,
It wasn't fun.
no.
So, great. Anything else that you need from us, Madam Clerk?
I don't think so.
Perfect.
Appreciate all you guys' time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Beth.
Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
doing all this. This is,
It was fun.
yeah.
Angie,
Great job.
Thank you, Jean.
leave this down here. Did you like our picture of the
I did, I was going to say, yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much.
So the next item on, that has to go back to the state?
Away with it, please.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
So,
Who's gonna walk away with that?
who knows?
Could you imagine if someone did?
So the next item on the agenda is to discuss Article 34, Citizens Petition, to adopted at October 4th, 2021, special town meeting. So with that being said, I'm going to hand this off to Ms. Federoff,
Sure.
Town Council.
So, I'm pulling down my mask so you can hear me. So in any event, so obviously at the town meeting, everyone recalls there was a warrant article which requested the board at its next regular meeting to consider the removal of all the ZBA members. So tonight, what we have to talk about is how to respond to that affirmative vote. Employees, and under 268A, these are employees, they're entitled to due process. So under your own bylaws, you have to find just cause to remove any of your appointees. In addition, they're entitled to notice and a hearing, so they would be given a letter. In that letter, they would be advised of the reason for removal, that the justifications, so that they could adequately prepare a defense if they wanted to prepare a defense. The other thing that's a little bit trickier with this particular article is there's a current application pending before the board, which is relatively controversial. It's a 40B project. So while I won't speak to any particular project, as a general matter, when you're looking at these issues, what you look at is litigative risk. So the litigative risk when there's an application before any permitting authority is whether or not there's evidence of a civil rights violation. Now, in the land use context, that's a very high bar to establish, very high bar. And there are routine court decisions that come down that stand for the proposition that you have appellate rights if you have an application pending before any particular body. So it's very difficult to violate someone's civil rights in that context, absent racial animus or gender bias or some other kind of compelling circumstance, just in the normal course. So with that backdrop, recently there was a case, and it was out of Hopkinton, where the town got hit with a $1.5 million judgment, jury judgment. And it was for the town working to thwart the development of a particular parcel of land in the town. And what that case stands for is where there is a more of a conspiracy type theory where multiple boards and public officials are working collaboratively against a particular development. So that risk exists whenever there's an application pending before anybody. There's also an obligation on the part of an appointing authority to make sure that they have the right people in the jobs and they're doing their jobs correctly and within the confines of law. Whether it be rules of ethics, whether it be your own internal bylaws, codes of conduct, all of those considerations. And that's why you have this hearing process for your employees for removal to determine if there's just cause. So the reality is, in order to, so if I'm investigating any employee or considering discipline of an employee, what I like to do is have a full investigation of that employee and see what the facts are. Because that's the whole purpose of a hearing, is to uncover what the facts are but be armed with those facts ahead of the hearing. So it gives people an opportunity to present their evidence, present their case, all of those things. You go into the hearing knowing how you're going to prosecute your case. So in the most, I guess, typical context for people at home, if you watch prosecutions on whatever they are, you know, the DA versus the public defender, they don't ever go in there unprepared and just start asking witnesses questions. They go in there with an outline of their case. And they base it on the evidence that, for example, the police department has uncovered for them. They have the gun, they have the fingerprints or whatever it is. So that's what we as employment lawyers like to do too, in different contexts. We say, what are the policies that are implicated here? What's the factual underpinning of those things? You take all of those requirements or goals and couple that with the fact that there is a permit application pending, you may have a different decision. I mean, it depends upon, maybe you say, okay, this application is pending, we still need an investigation, let's undertake an investigation of these folks, but we're not going to interfere with an application and the rights that are owed to a landowner in any particular application before a board, or maybe you make a different decision. But I'm telling you, there's litigative risk in every decision that you as a body make. There's evidence in other towns where litigation has been successful in this context, in the land use context, whereas before, land use lawyers felt pretty insulated from those kinds of risks because of the prior case law. And then there are the due process rights afforded to employees. So that's the legal backdrop.
All right. Any questions from the board regarding legal liability or anything in that sense?
Are we going to discuss it, or?
Well, I just wanted to, first, just see if any questions from the board.
One other piece, I forgot also. So the other complicating factor, I'm sorry, can I interrupt you now?
Yeah, absolutely.
The other complicating factor is, once an application is filed, there's this constructive approval process, and I think you guys are well aware of this process too. So if, for example, the board said, forget it, we're gonna just remove everyone this evening, then you have an empty zoning board of appeals. The zoning board of appeals, in the context of a 40B, has 180 days to process an application. Then they have 40 days to render a written decision. So absent them taking those steps, you have what's called constructive approval. And to me, and I'm not a land use lawyer by any stretch of the imagination on a routine basis, but to me, that's the worst result, because in a 40B context, you're pretty much confined to, this is almost a protected use. There's a statutory presumption that this use should be installed in any town across the state because you need affordable housing. So the legislature created this mechanism that removed a lot of the review processes in order to expedite these permits because they felt it was important for social equity and all of these other reasons, right? So the one response that you can have to 40Bs is conditions, right? Because I want to make this not a monstrosity or some sort of thing that doesn't fit within the community. So I'm going to craft the conditions so this looks like something that should be there, as opposed to something that is just stuck in there with no consideration to the neighborhood. So the conditions are your strongest tool in your toolbox when dealing with any 40B application. So if the entire board were removed, beware, and I don't know when this application was originally filed, I don't know how much time has elapsed since that time, but beware that the public hearing process would have to start from scratch because you can't mullen in, if you know what I mean by that, so you can't listen to the prior testimony and the prior evidence that was presented at those public hearings and make your own decision. You have to start from scratch and do a full presentation again and have that all done before the 180 days is expired. Otherwise, you have a project, no conditions, approved by the state, not by the local body, by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So that's the other complicated factor.
I do have a couple of questions then, and I
Yes.
know we're gonna discuss, but I do have some questions for you then. What I think I'm hearing you saying is there is no ability to simply just remove without a hearing.
You need a hearing.
Okay.
Per your own bylaws.
Okay, and that we can't simply sub in another group of people, board or committee, to do this. They'd have to hear for themselves all of the things that have already been discussed amongst the, so in other words, they couldn't just queue up all the recordings and bring themselves up to speed and jump in and just move forward.
That's correct.
But that the clock is still ticking from the original date that this application was filed.
That is correct.
Can I ask one question just to piggyback off that, so I just don't forget? So what happens if they all just resigned on their own?
Same situation.
What happens if two of them resigned?
You need 2 votes.
No, I know, but I guess my point is like, what happens, I mean, you've heard me do the announcements, we're looking for all kinds of volunteers, right?
Yep.
What happens if 2 of them just resigned? Because we only have 3 voting members, right? So what
Well,
happens if they,
you have alternates, right?
right, so let's just say that they left. But what you're saying implies to me that if 3 of them left, or 4 of them left, so let's say a couple of them moved away and,
We don't have a quorum, is that what you're saying?
no, not even a quorum, just we have new people. What you're saying is that we cannot rotate people.
Okay.
You can't rotate.
So if we had, a vacancy on the Board of Selectmen and then 2 other ones, seats were up, you're saying that we would have to start all of, I mean, it's different for the elected board, I'm assuming, but you're saying that in any capacity, when a project like this is up, that if over half of them, for whatever reason, were to leave,
You'd be in a pickle, yes. It
So
would,
we-
regardless.
right,
Removal, resignation.
So I guess we see ourselves in this position no matter what happens, right? I mean, the issue is we're being held hostage by the conflation of two issues. I
Yeah.
think for me, one of the issues that I have, and this is just, I didn't mean to interrupt you, were you done?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm very interested in what
This
you're
was just
saying.
this was my 2 cents on the questions about the legality piece. So, so first off, going through the article process, we had discussed that cause, the wording around cause established that they were removed for cause, not that we necessarily had to find cause. So the way that I interpreted the language, which influenced the writing of the Article 22 at the last town meeting, was that when you establish cause, when someone's removed for cause, the language allows that they were removed for cause. Not, it doesn't list out, this has to, like the recall law, for example, lists out very specific things that have to be met in order for a recall. The way the bylaws are written in the general bylaws under section 14 or whatever it is, says that someone can be removed after a hearing for cause, meaning that when they're removed, it's because of cause. We don't have to necessarily find cause, and cause doesn't have to be anything to do with a project, because what I'm getting confused about is we're talking about individuals on a board, and somehow a project always gets overlapped on top of that conversation. The issue that I've had from day one with this entire process is we've found a way to mismanage this entire thing to make it seem like it's about a project when it's about people. And we keep coming back to that, where it's like we're talking about something, and then this 40B project gets brought up, and then we're talking about the 40B. No one cares about the 40B project. We're talking about the people.
Well, it's not that we don't care about it,
Well,
but
in
they're
terms of this
separate.
context,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
care about
yeah.
that, because, I mean, if we're talking about just what's in front of us right now, narrow scope, vision, what is the conversation we're having? It's about complaints that were filed by citizens to which they entrusted us to investigate. We didn't, and then we come back to a 40B. It has nothing to do with what people were talking about, at least a vast majority of them. So when we're talking about the legality of it, I appreciate the backdrop of that, and it's important for people to recognize what the possible implications are, but it doesn't help that we constantly conflate the issues of a project application and the people. Because if these people all decided to resign because the people that are on it wanted to just kind of like go through it, they could just say, the pressure is too much, we're all going to resign on our own, and then we're no better off than we were if we did the investigation. I just feel like if we investigated or did it publicly, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. And I think this is what kind of forces our hand a little bit. So,
Are we opening up discussion?
that's the only piece of my liability thing.
No, I mean,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
okay.
So I guess that's my
Yeah.
piece. I just wanted to, so I guess the big thing is I wanted to point out that although it's important to talk about the implications, I really want to be open to that. My perception of this, that the project application and the board and the complaints of the town are two separate things in my eyes. That's number one. And then number two is, I want to go back to cause, because I had an understanding when I was putting Article 22 together, and I was going by kind of your statements around that, is that the language around the cause was vague, so that if a person was removed, it was for cause.
Okay, so let me, because there are
Yeah,
two
yeah,
issues, if I
absolutely.
can kind of address them one by one. And I want to go to the cause second, because I
Yeah.
think that's more complicated.
Yeah,
So I'm not telling you what to do here.
yeah,
Right? My job as town council, luckily, is not the decision maker, because you know who's not the judge? Me,
yeah.
right? I'm telling you, if I were prosecuting any sort of action, what my practice is to figure out what my evidence is before I get to the hearing. Because that's called being prepared, right? Like, know what the answer to the question is before you ask it, right? That's the first rule of thumb that you learn as a lawyer. What's the answer to that question gonna be? And when it's not what you expect, then you say, oops, try to refigure it. But, so that's that piece. And I'm not telling you, because I don't know the facts here, I'm not telling you whether or not there's a legitimate reason or not to remove people. So taken in a different context, you have a termination. Someone files a complaint with MCAD, Mass Commission Against Discrimination. They claim there's discrimination, that's the real reason why I got fired. And what do we do as lawyers when we get those complaints? We say, no, let's take a step back. It's not because you're XYZ protected class. It's because all of these legitimate, non-discriminatory reasons. You didn't do your job. You showed up late 20 times. You did XYZ.
Right.
So same thing here. I'm not saying that there is a civil rights violation, nor would I say that in an open session anyway. But I'm saying this is the backdrop of case law. And what do you do if you're issued a complaint based on a civil rights violation? You say, no. This isn't for this reason. Instead, it's for these legitimate reasons,
Yep.
having nothing to do with due process, that prompted us to remove you.
Yep.
And that's the back and forth that we do as lawyers. But my job is to let you all understand what the risk is when you undertake any action. And you make the decision.
Yeah. No, that's very clear. I do appreciate you
Okay.
saying that.
On the cause piece, and is 22 the article on the recall piece? That one? Okay.
Yeah.
So what I think we were talking about at that time was, say in the recall language for elected officials, there were 5 reasons, right? And it's like felonious misconduct, I don't know, what other 4 more there are. In this one, we left the cause open because there can be a whole host of reasons why you want to remove someone. Are they violating a bylaw? Do they not show up?
Right.
Do they, what else? Do they violate the law? It could be as far as I've committed criminal misconduct as an appointed person. It could be a whole host of things, broader than you may want for your elected officials. So that allows us to not create our own standard, because there could still be judicial review, but you still have to find just cause. And there has to be a justifiable reason for taking an action, because they're public employees, just like the town clerk's office and the town accountant's office. They're public employees, so they have certain due process rights, so you have to find just cause. Now, it's not a prescribed set of 5 reasons. It can be a whole host of reasons, whatever you think is appropriate, but it has to rise to the level that a court would say, those are good grounds for removing someone, and agree with you. So that's the piece that I wasn't sure if you and I were meeting our minds together tonight.
Yeah.
Are we? Okay.
We're moving towards the center, for sure.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
But it is broad. It's not listed as, for example, open meeting law violation. It's covered under that, under cause. Because if we determine that that's egregious enough, then we can make that determination.
If you determine it's egregious enough, you can make the determination, for sure. Do boards and public bodies violate the open meeting law all the time because they're unfamiliar with it and they're not lawyers and they don't routinely read the open meeting law on a day-to-day basis like I would? Sure.
No, absolutely, but I'm just saying, just for the sake of this, and I'm using open meeting law because it is,
It's easy
it's his
example.
easiest one that
Yeah.
everyone violates.
You
You
have
could do
someone
that.
who's consistently ignoring an AG's determination and they're communicating via email serially. Sure,
Yeah.
that would be good grounds,
Yeah, okay,
or could be good grounds, I won't
Could
say
be.
would be,
Yeah.
yes.
okay.
So
That's all.
what you're recommending tonight, Ms. Federoff, is before we would even take such vote, and to make sure that we limit the scope of liability towards the town of Hanson, so we don't end up like a Hopkinton on the fence for whatever $1 million. You're recommending, or would say, do a investigation to gather your details and then move forward with the hearing if you find suit.
I think it's important to do a full and fair investigation of any employment matter.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that I was on the same side. Mr. Cohen, I'm just going to keep everything among the board tonight, just to prevent us from going down a road that might open up any liability towards the town.
And so, I'm embarrassed that it took a town meeting warrant to get us to discuss this in open session. I've asked to have it on the agenda. I know we were following advice of counsel for some of the reasons that Kate just articulated, actually, and not discussing it. And I know I've heard other people say these guys are volunteers and, you know, cut them some slack, but I think Ms. Fedorov has very nicely summarized that they're actually municipal employees. We're all municipal employees. So we have to look through that lens. And I really don't think that we have any choice but to investigate. We had not one person stand up at town meeting and say, I object, this is ridiculous, why is this article on the, not one person stood up. Not only that, Mr. Cohen was able to collect enough signatures that he got it onto the town meeting warrant. So to me, you know, let's conservatively say it wasn't an overlap, 100% of all of the people that signed his warrant and then the people that showed up at town meeting, and I don't believe it was, but I haven't like analyzed it. But I think we've got a compelling, we've got a group of citizens compelling us to look into this. And they are appointed by us, and I don't feel comfortable, based on some of the allegations, which may or may not be true, I don't feel comfortable that I can just keep moving on as usual and act like there's nothing to see here. I think we need to do an investigation, and I just can't conceive of a reason why we wouldn't. That's just my perspective.
Any comments from this side of the table?
All right, I'll go. A lot of it gets confusing, you know, and Joe is absolutely correct. You start talking about the situation, and all of a sudden, the 40B comes up, when that's not what we were discussing.
No.
I understand that and it could be any board, if we were to get rid of an entire board, we're going to have a problem. But with the zoning board or even the Board of Health, besides this board, they're the most important boards in town where you can't replace those people. So you have to have people ready to take their place. But they need to be qualified people. It's not like, and no disrespect to the Rec Commission, but it's not just like putting someone on the Rec Commission. But it's two separate issues. I, like Joe, the 40B is the 40B. It's got nothing to do with the board itself. And over the past, I would say, 6 weeks to 2 months, this is all I've been hearing. Phone calls, emails, you're afraid to go into Shaw's or whatever, because, and it's a concern to the people of Hanson, and I get that. So I started looking into it, and I'm going to ask the board tonight to move ahead with a hearing on one, not all three, but on one of the members of the zoning board. Because I believe I have enough information, I have enough evidence that a member of the board is misrepresenting himself.
Are you saying we wouldn't move forward with investigating anybody else, or?
Well, we could.
Okay.
But I have, I believe, enough evidence, enough information that one of the board members needs to be removed.
So you're sort of asking to prioritize that particular one?
Sure.
Yeah.
We don't need to go after the entire board. An open meeting law and a violation, and a violation on an open meeting law, is small potatoes. Whether the minutes were done or they did something in private, and this could be any board, we've all done it. This board has done it. And, it's a slap on the wrist or whatever, but I believe I have enough information, enough evidence to at least have one member of the board removed. And Joe, if the other two decide that they want to resign because of this information, or because we're going to have a hearing on one of the other members, then so be it.
Yeah.
You know,
I think somehow I've become the somehow I've become the figurehead of this whole thing, and I can tell you right now, I have not. I'm not there. For me, it comes down to the same thing. I remember my third meeting here, when we were reappointing somebody, and I had said I wanted a chance to talk, and we didn't get a chance to vet them, and we voted them in anyways, and we put ourselves in this position because I wanted to be able to ask those questions, and here we are being handcuffed. Because we didn't want to follow a process, because we didn't want to do it with every other person here. There was a reason why I wanted to vet the people. There's a reason why I wanted to talk to specific people. And I was denied that many, many times. I've asked to put this discussion on the agenda many, many times. Hasn't happened. And here we are. The article before us is to remove the entire ZBA. Do I think that's a good thing? I don't know yet. I want to see what the investigation is to Laura's point. What I'm hearing, though, is that if we don't want to stall something, only 3 of them have to stay. Only 3 of them have to stay. And I say we investigate all of them because, quite frankly, all of them need to be investigated. Yep. Why? Because it took all of this to get to this point when it didn't have to. So therefore, we investigate them all. They've lost the confidence of the town as far as I'm concerned, because again, not one person showed up, not one person defended, not one person was even there when the article was going up to just speak to it. Plenty of opportunities to do it. You can't go around without hearing about this. I'm constantly being called about it. And again, I don't mind for whoever's watching. I don't mind. I'm here for that reason. Call me, write me, whatever. But it's embarrassing. I feel like I've been fighting a fight for no reason when we could have just been having this conversation publicly. And again, it keeps going back to the same thing. It keeps getting looped into this 40B, and somehow we're, singling people out. No, we're not. Following a process. I've been in situations before where open meeting laws are violated and all this other stuff. I've been there, done that. I'm empathetic and sympathetic to the fact that people are volunteers, they're taking time out of their day, and these are real reputations, real people that 99.9% of the time, they're not doing anything malicious or anything. Problem is, here we are. It's not a good look. We represent everybody, everybody. And everybody here knows how long I've been fighting to sit here to represent people. I care about it very, very much, very much. That's why I take every opportunity to get on my soapbox and say it, because it's been years that I've been trying to get here to try to help out. I don't like being in this situation any more than anybody else does, but every one of them has to get investigated, because everybody that could have showed up did show up, and they voted for all of them. There's 10,000 people we just went through. 100 people showed up, a little over 100 people showed up to talk about it. So we're going to do it. A couple of ZBA members are talking to people that I know in Pembroke, asking them about me specifically. Why am I against developments? Why am I against this? Why am I against that? I'm not. Chairman of the planning board, chairman of the housing authority. I'm for developments, trying to buy a house as we speak. I'm for all this stuff. What I'm not for is not having the chance to talk openly and publicly, and it's getting old. We need to investigate them all, and we hold a hearing. That's my perception of it.
I agree, and I really don't think it needed to get to this point. I feel like when there's a lack of transparency and we do not talk about things in open session, people draw their own conclusions, and it's way worse than the reality. And it just didn't need to get this way. And with all due respect, Kate, I understand where you're coming from with the case in Hopkinton, but I don't know the specifics of that, and I will look it up. But I highly doubt that they had a citizen's petition at town meeting to remove these people. So this isn't like this board is unilaterally out to get the ZBA. That's not what the case is. The case is we've got a group of concerned citizens who have expressed, there's some stuff that looks a little off. I'm not going to get into details because we are in open session and it's not a hearing, and people haven't been given, the notice. But quick Google search reveals quite a bit that we were not necessarily aware of when we appointed these people. One of the things that I'm extremely concerned is the lack of full and transparent disclosure by people that are applying for positions. You know, this board can only act when we are given information, and, you know, shame on us for not having a better vetting process. I don't know what that is, I don't know what it looks like, but I think this is something we need to think about in the future. I know we had talked about running Corey checks, yada, yada, in the past, and we probably need to think about how we do that, because I feel like what I have learned subsequent to appointing some of these people is not what I was presented with on an application. I have learned things that if I had known, I would not have appointed these people, and that's just the truth. And so I do think that we need to do the investigation. I haven't heard anybody object to that. And I know you're saying prioritize, Jim. I'm agnostic about that. I don't really care. And for me, I agree with these guys. This has got nothing to do with the 40B. And for the record, the state crams the 40B down your throat. The best you can do is try to effectuate, you know, as little impact on the people that live near the 40B as possible by pushing back and shaping and asking for this and asking for that, traffic and, you know, landscaping and all that stuff. This isn't about that. This is about a board that we're hearing from just ordinary people, like people that don't even get involved in this stuff, that they have got a complete lack of confidence. That bothers me because we appoint that board. So to me, that's an extension of this board, and it needs to be investigated, and I won't feel comfortable until we have done that.
Mr. Mitchell.
I disagree with going after the whole board. I think that, I like what Mr. Hickey said, if we have cause on an individual member, then we should investigate that member. If that member violated bylaws, I'll be the first one to motion to remove them. But just to sum them all up and just go and just remove the board, I disagree with that. And you guys keep saying it's got nothing to do with the 40B, nothing to do with the 40B. All the emails and stuff that I got, I don't have anybody from precinct 3 down here sending emails about the ZBA. All the emails and everything happen to be around a close proximity of this 40B. You know, and I read some of the stuff on there. Where were these people 3-4 years ago? Now all of a sudden. So I disagree. It's got nothing to do with 40B. But I would like to see cause in evidence. If Mr. Hickey, it's the first time I heard that, if he's got something on somebody, we should have a hearing and do it the proper way and go after that person individually, not lump them all in one and then just get rid of them based on emails and stuff because you guys are taking pressure from your constituents. I disagree with it, just my opinion.
As a representative of Precinct 3, I would say that I disagree with that because all I hear are people talking about it. So it's not Precinct 1, it's Precinct 3, it's Precinct 2, it's everybody, and it's not pressure. They're reaching out and lobbying to their representative. It's not pressure at all. I don't feel any pressure. The pressure I feel is actually from this board because we do not talk about it. And the reality of the situation is, and I do, with all due respect, because I do respect you very much, the idea is the article was the article. The article asked that we investigate. We're not removing anybody right now. We're talking about doing an investigation. And there's plenty to go off of based off of reorganizations and other reorganizations and all these other things that were going on that do warrant an investigation. It has nothing to do, again, with the people necessarily even as people. It's just a town meeting. This isn't like this is one of those things where someone came out and said, hey, I really think you should look at this one person. An entire community came out. An entire community. Just because we only had 100 people show up during a rainstorm with the generators going out during, thanks for everybody that did that, by the way, that came out. Kudos to you because the generator was on. But we had a ton of people come out. We could have had more. We could have had at least one person come out in opposition to this. Not one did. And this was an open meeting, an open dialogue. Open dialogue. Not one person, not one, has come out and said anything. Not one. So we have to just do due diligence, that's all.
So I'm just going to say my 2 cents, because you all had your share on this, and then...
They got to speak like 2 or 3 times.
I'm
I
sorry.
spent once.
That's because I'm loud.
I have one,
Go ahead,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Go
before I
ahead,
let you
go
speak, I
ahead.
have one quick question through you to town council.
Sure.
I'm not against an investigation on all of them. But as a selectman, I've never been through one of these hearings.
Yeah.
Would we have the hearing with the three of them sitting in front of us, or would we do each hearing individually?
Every person
Good
has their
question.
own right, you know, their own protected rights, so you would have individual hearings, whether or not you
Whether
sequestered
all three or
them,
not,
or-
from the townspeople, which,
You could have them the
This is what
same
I'm trying to do.
night, but they would be separate hearings.
right, they
Because
would
there
all,
would be
all
sep-
three be separate hearings.
Yeah, 'cause there
And
would be-
alls I'm telling the board, I'm sorry, Kate, but alls I'm telling in the board is I have one right here,
Yep.
ready to go, November 2nd.
Go.
You can have the floor back, Mr. Chair, thank you very much.
Love the passion.
So, just to move the meeting along here, because, anyhow, seeing how I need to move the meeting along, is I agree that it doesn't hurt to do an investigation, to figure out the facts, and then move forward. And I think the only question I have for the board, and I think just hearing everyone speak, is I kind of know where the votes are, is would the board want a full-blown investigation to all 5 members, or specifically to the individuals that were mentioned in our complaints over the last couple of months? Because there's one individual that I don't recall right off the top of my head being named in any of the complaints, but unfortunately, they were grouped into the whole thing.
If
So.
you're gonna do one, you might as well do them all.
Yeah.
I agree, I feel like, you know, this is an opportunity, and I hear what you're saying, because it's sort of like, you know, but how would we feel after the fact if we figured out, you know what, we only narrowed it to those 3 people, and subsequently found out that there were other people we should, so I think if we're going to vet, we need to be equal and make sure it's everybody that we're looking at, and then we can feel very comfortable that we've done our due diligence.
Okay, so with that being said, is that how the rest of the board feels, that it would have to be the whole board?
I think we follow the article the way it was presented and voted on.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes, go ahead, move forward.
Okay, Mr. Hickey, okay. And so with that being said, Ms. Green, if you don't mind working with Ms. Federoff moving forward, so we can kind of,
And I suggest we engage separate independent investigator, no ties to the
Yes.
town of Hanson,
okay,
flies in clean, flies out.
perfect, thank you. I appreciate that.
What's
I'd like to meet with them as soon as you.
What's that?
or she
The
is
cost.
Yep,
He or she.
That's the only other
yep,
question.
so one other question, that Mr. Mitchell had just asked, and I kind of agree with him too, is we need to put a cap on a cost, because the last time we had
What's this
done.
gonna cost? I mean,
Yeah, so I know what you're talking about last time, so it was pricey, right? So let me see if I can come up with some people, or we can put our heads together, see who we can come up with and present a couple of proposals to you.
Okay,
All right, with a cap on costs,
perfect.
and then you guys can have a better
and,
understanding of what you're facing.
and at this,
Do we need to take a vote?
so, yeah, I was gonna ask for a motion,
Okay,
but
well-
but hold on, let me have it this time, thank you. Now I lost my train of thought on that one.
You want me to speak then?
Go ahead, yep.
If this is what we're doing, we're gonna hire an investigator to do this, am I allowed to show other members of the board what I've already found out?
So, here's the thing,
Probably should.
when you're sharing things in a public setting, it becomes open public record, right?
Okay.
When you're sharing things via email, you risk the
Open.
possibility of violating the open meeting law if it leads to any discussion of an opinion. So it's better to send your information to someone who's not on the board.
Okay, but I could show it to the investigator, and in turn,
Yes.
the
You
investigator
should-
would show it to the rest of them.
For sure, you should show it to the investigator. Yeah, that's the person who you're.
'Cause,
It is
yeah,
crazy, but
The cost for one of them should be 0.
Can I, no, through you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to be clear that we are talking about two separate things here. So the article is asking for the removal of the board. So what, and that requires a hearing. What we're doing is, we're talking about going above and beyond the hearing, and we're doing an investigation and a hearing. So we can, if we feel confident that we have the information we need, all we have to do is have a hearing. We don't need to spend any money. So the actual answer to the question is $0 if we choose to go that route.
On that one,
We don't have to hire an investigator at all. We brought that up here in this conversation. That is not, there's no requirement.
You don't have to hire an investigator.
Right. So I want to be clear about that. So we're talking, and the reason why I'm bringing this up right now is for two reasons. A, if we feel confident that we don't need it, we just hold the hearing and we schedule the hearing. The other reason is for the vote reason. You have to take two separate votes technically. One would be for the investigation, in which we'd have to establish someone to be able to sign a contract or bring us proposals. And then the second vote we'd have to take is to schedule a hearing, either pending that or do it now, one or the other. We don't need to do an investigation at all, is basically what I'm saying. So we just have to determine now, are we going investigation route, or are we going hearing route, or are we going to go investigation and hearing? Are we determining them both tonight? Are we going to, so I just want to put that out there for the sake of it.
Right, and I would think that to do due diligence, I would say you would want to do your investigation or have someone put the facts together for us. It doesn't need to be necessarily an investigator, but it just needs to be someone that can independently look at something and say, at this complaint, it has a valid complaint.
an
This-
uninterested third party.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
basically what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So if Ms. Green would want to look into finding whatever best median that is, or, best route forward, whether it's just another lawyer to go through and say yay, nay, or an investigator, I don't know what that would be, and maybe offline, you two can discuss which would be the best route, but just an independent third party to say, this is a valid complaint, it does conflict with this, it does not conflict with that.
I just want to leave it open that just because they say something is invalid doesn't mean that we're not going to consider it to be valid. So I want to put that out there too. Just because if whatever Jim has, if that person determines it's not enough, I might feel it is enough.
Right,
So
and
I don't want to leave it hanging basically on the opinion of a third party. Although it's great to have an objective third party, there's no downside to that necessarily. Their opinion has no bearing on what I'm going to vote in
Wouldn't
terms of
they
moving
just
forward.
present us with the facts of their investigation? I don't think they're going to opine on it. That's the whole idea of hiring a third party that's uninterested, is they're going to say, you've asked us to look at conflicts, residency, I'm just making this stuff up, violations of blah, blah, blah. We looked into it, here's what we found, boom, boom, boom.
All I'm saying is that, just like when we talked about hiring the other attorney, was it, for the project?
Mm-hmm.
And we determined that the ultimate decision lies with us, we're not deferring the decision-making to some other third party.
Yep.
I want to really establish that the decision does lie with us as the appointing authority and as the.
Yeah,
as the
and I
select- yeah.
would.
I just want to be clear, that's all.
Right, yeah,
That's-
and with whoever does the investigation or collection of facts, whatever you want to call it, I would have them come back and present to us in a public body.
Okay, all right.
And say, this is X, Y, Z, and we all have the complaints, and we'll be able to cross-reference our notes with their notes and go from there.
Okay, perfect, that's all I want, thank you.
So, so with that being said, Mr. Hickey had mentioned, on November 2nd, if you would want to work with Ms. Green on that, and if Ms. Green says this is valid, then
Okay.
we'll move forward with that.
Sure.
All right?
I put it out there, does that need to be second to take it?
I'll second it.
Okay.
So are we going back to the one individual, or are we
No.
doing
Hold
the?
on, hold on,
all of them?
we've got a couple things going. So
Yeah.
let's just start with the investigation,
Yeah.
first. So I'm looking for a motion to hire a third party to go through the facts and present their findings and opinion on the
So
matter.
moved.
Second?
On all members.
On all members, yep.
And alternates.
And
Just to be
alternates, yep,
clear.
yep.
Okay.
So moved
Second.
and seconded, all in favor? All right, so with that being said, we'll move forward with that. Mr. Hickey wanted to move forward on something for November 2nd. I don't think that necessarily requires,
Well, I would want to wait until we have a chance to finish it on all of them, so that we can do all the hearings in one night.
Can you, I'm sorry, I missed the
Do all the
beginning.
hearings in one night?
Yeah, you can do all the hearings in one night.
So I would rather catch up on the other 4, and that we were able to do them all in one night.
All right, so you don't want to expedite what you have?
No, let's see what the investigation brings, we'll look at all 5, and then we'll, let the individuals know, and we'll do the hearing when we're ready. You know?
Perfect.
So with that vote, we are going to come back to you with proposals from hopefully a few different people in terms of price, approach, et cetera. You select that investigator once we present those to you, and then we're off to the races. He or she does the job and comes back to you, and then we make a decision about the hearing and going forward in that respect.
Yep.
Just so I'm clear,
Yep, no,
right?
that's well, that's what I would
Yes,
expect.
yep.
I mean, I'd like to see it on the 16th, at, the latest.
The 16th of November?
Yeah,
The proposals or
no,
the full investigation?
yeah,
That'll never happen.
that's gonna
That could
be
be,
tough.
that's
that's
still
it. That's
aggressive.
aggressive.
Yeah.
I think that's not realistic.
But could we-
Because
Next meeting is the 2nd, and that's when we present you the proposals. Then we engage them, then they have to come here and interview.
But may I suggest that perhaps, in the interest of expediting, that we're not holding up for all of the investigations to come back before?
If they
Yeah.
trickle in, like, one is abundantly clear, sure, we could say, well, give us your report and let's move on that one. Maybe someone's completely absolved.
Right.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? And then you have a situation, you say, these are the findings, oh, they look good, I'm gonna approve it. If you have someone who it's abundantly clear there's a violation, bring them forward, I mean,
So
you don't
as it
have to
becomes
do them
available,
together, but you can.
we can do hearings. So probably if you queue up your info that you have, that may end up being the first hearing, because you've already accumulated a significant amount of information, and the investigator, whomever that might be, will just build on that.
Okay.
Sure.
Kenny, can I just say, I'm literally an ice cube over here. I know you turned the heat down, but it's like,
All right, so I think the board feels confident that we can move on to the next agenda item for tonight.
Yeah.
Okay,
thank you.
all right. The lady of the hour is Miss Mary Collins, here to give us a department update on the Council of Aging.
Joe, would you mind moving that
It's awkward because
right in front of the windows?
I saw that.
Oh, is everybody standing up to shake hands with Mary?
No, just give me a thumbs up.
Oh, ouch.
Wow.
Mary, good
Wasn't
job.
feeling that, thank you.
Yeah, that's a tough crowd. Yeah, okay.
I am Mary Collins, I'm the Director of Elder Affairs for the town of Hanson. Very pleased and privileged to have that position. I asked to speak with the Selectmen this evening because it's first of all been a very long time. COVID has kept us apart certainly, and quite busy in other areas. So I did want to give you, as well as the town, an update on what's going on at the center. As we do deal with what is considered the frailer part of the population, but I have found is probably the stronger part of the population, those 60 and older. We've been very cautious in what our behavior has been over the last, unfortunately, over a year now. And then rolling out programs where people are actually at the center, in contact with one another again. And so we have done it in what I think is quite a thoughtful manner, in starting off small and then building from that. So just to give everyone, including those watching at home, an update. Starting on Mondays, we have our chorus who has returned at 10 a.m. and our knitting group has returned in the afternoon. Tuesdays and Thursdays, chair yoga for men and women. Very, very well received program over the years and continues to be. Wednesdays and Friday mornings is our men's group, which is growing. You can occasionally find some free donuts that might find their way into building, and of course,
Did-
coffee,
I'm sorry, Mayor, did you say free donuts?
donuts.
Okay.
I'll find them.
Absolutely.
I'll find them.
I'm in. If it's free, it's for me.
10 a.m., we'll see you there. Thursdays, we have our women's group, and then in the afternoon, our line dancers. And one of the line dancers, the instructor, has said that if you can walk, you can line dance. I see a possible participant. Sir,
Bruce? Bruce?
line dancing?
Mr. Costa?
There you go. Never too young. And then a program that we have started since COVID. We had a supportive day program for well over 25 years at the center. And that program was for our frailer seniors within the town, those that might have dementia, Alzheimer's, or even some physical limitations. And unfortunately, it succumbed to COVID. Financially, it just was not possible to hold that program any longer. But the need is still there within the community. We still have people living with their parents, their children, their spouses, and they still need some respite, not only for the people that are taking care of them, but also for themselves. They need to have a place to go, a purpose. And so myself and Leah Garcio, who works part-time as an activities director, we developed a program 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Please tell your friends. It's from 10 a.m. in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. Lunch is provided for the person through Old Colony Elder Services. And it's a free program. There are activities that take place. There's all kinds of socialization and reminiscing and things that are very important to stimulate someone's mind and give them a sense of purpose and well-being. And that's what we're striving for. It's just one more part of the population that we're trying to serve within the community. So again, Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 10 to 2, Leah's Club. Just give us a call at the center. On the same note, I want to thank Jean Sibley, who comes to us from Old Colony Elder Services. She's our food services manager in the kitchen, who has not missed a day throughout COVID. Jean and I were there for many, many months. The meals still got out to our senior population. If anybody knows Ralph Grunlin, he'll drive through anything to get where he's going, and he's one of our very, very popular drivers. Ralph and Dana Franciosi and Tom McSweeney are all very dedicated drivers and have delivered over thousands of meals every year. So very blessed to have them as part of our team, and all voluntary. We did start a couple of groups. Since August, we felt that there was a need for a bereavement group, depending on, it didn't matter what your loss was, but it was incredibly important to offer people that kind of support. So that started in August. We have a relaxation group that started as well, and a woman in town, Linda Andrews, who has offered her services to help people learn how to make their own cards. So, you know, we're trying to find something for everyone, I guess, at this point. Just a couple more things. Veterans Breakfast will be back again this year. We had to curb it last year, but we did home deliveries. But this year we'll be back at the center on November 8th at 10 a.m. So we're looking forward to that. And then just one final note. This is open enrollment season for Medicare. You are all too young to know about this. However, it started on October 15th. It goes till December 7th. This is a time for those who you love, who are 65 and older, to take a look at their health insurance plans. I started seeing people, I'm a Shine counselor, so I started seeing people on Friday. So I saw them Friday, Monday, and Tuesday, and up to this point, we have about a $3,600 savings combined. Just looking at plans, finding appropriate plans for people, and then making the changes for 2022. Please do not listen to Jimmy J.J. Walker or Joe Namath They are working for independent insurance agencies. They may offer some services that might be available to a senior, but so would a Shine counselor. A Shine counselor would be available or would be able to offer the same programs. So, and they don't have a dog in the race, as they say. Shine counselors are normally volunteers. They are certified through the state of Massachusetts. And so we're very much aware of what is available to people. So, yes, sir.
Do we have to sign up every year?
No, but it is advisable.
No, me.
I know. But I will tell you, it is advisable to check with a Shine counselor every year to make sure that there are no changes or that there might not be a plan that's more economical for you. So a friendly phone call, just give a buzz and,
And so, Mary, how would people just reach out to the senior center?
yes, make an appointment. I'm booking now for the week of Thanksgiving. That's how, how far out I'm booking. And it stops December 7th. So we're probably going to be there till midnight on December 7th. But don't hesitate to call and please don't hesitate to tell a mother or parent or a loved one. Just put a little bug in their ear that this might be a good time to reach out to a Shine counselor, no matter what town they live in. Okay,
Ms.
any questions?
First of all, I know I've told you this before, but we're so lucky to have you in this role. Your
you. I'm
compassion
happy to be
and
here.
passion for this population just shines through every minute of every day, and I'm grateful that we've got you. I'm wondering, the supportive day program, I understand how that, would have gotten destroyed by COVID. Are we thinking at some point, whenever that might be, when things get safer and, what have you, that might make a comeback, or?
It's a possibility. It certainly is a possibility. We were always very kind of stretched in terms of space. You have to have a certain amount of space in order to have a supportive day program. There's rules and regulations. We have that space, but we had to combine it with when the community had to use the space. So there was always kind of it would be wonderful, but it's just not something that a program that you can start back up without anything. So I'm hoping that someday, and certainly just serving the population with these two days of programs has been incredibly helpful. It's brought back 3 of our former clients within the supportive day program who continue to live with their families. So that's
great.
Yeah, and then a new gentleman as well. So the word's getting out. Please don't hesitate to spread the word.
That's great.
Any questions? So I just want to also recognize Mary. She is a superstar employee. Where we have some slack, not slack, but an opening in our office. Mary was the first person to call up and step up and say, what can we do for your office? What can we do? And that just kind of goes to show that we have really great employees. Mary wasn't just the only one, but she's standing here in front of me, and I always like to praise in public and say thank you. Because not in every town do you have employees that are willing to say, hey, how can I help? So,
Thank you.
Mary, thank you very much, and you do a great job.
It's my pleasure. You have one of the most wonderful group of people 60 and older. I'm not denying probably the younger folks as well, but I really thoroughly enjoy the population that I work with.
Does that include
I'm
Jim,
very-
Mary?
Well, now
I'm
that
not
you say
saying
that,
anything,
I just
but-
want to make sure. So it's Wednesdays and Fridays
Oh, he's back to the coffee.
at 10.
Yes.
Okay, and how's the coffee? Okay, so I have
Took
to
the socks out of it last week, so you're all set.
bring my own coffee, but the donuts are,
The donuts are there still.
We do the best we can with the coffee. So, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next item on the list is Macquarie Auto Sales License Renewal. Ms. Green.
Yes, this is a gentleman who has been doing business in the town for many years. He is applying for renewal for a Class 2 auto dealer's license. He was first issued the license back in 2014 I don't know the history of why there's been a gap, but he's reapplied. He is current with all financial responsibilities with the town, and I'm just looking for the board to vote to approve his application.
Ms. Kemet?
And I ask this of every renewal for a business. Have we had any violations, building code violations, any other kind of violations or complaints or anything of that sort?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
And I did confirm with the treasurer collector that there are no financial responsibilities owed.
Okay, so moved.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Say aye. Is that an aye, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 5-0, Lisa. All right, next on
Good
the,
luck.
next on the list is recognize James Egan's resignation from Capital Improvement Committee.
So moved.
I have motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Well, I know
With
you guys
regret.
hate it when I say with regret.
But with
I'm
regret.
gonna say it.
Been a long
I was
time.
just thinking of
That's
that,
normal.
yeah. And I
So-
would have said it.
5-0. Next is recognize resignation of Paul Clark from the Hanson Parks and Fields Commission.
So moved with regret.
With regret. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? 5-0.
Can I not vote for
Abstain?
his,
Sure.
no, I don't want him to leave, I don't want
Doesn't
him.
mean he's not gonna leave.
Yeah, all right, I'll accept it.
I have a question for Lisa. Did you get any more? There was a few from Parks and Fields.
These are this is the one I know of.
Okay.
Were
So it
there-
might be,
there more
might
that-
be
were
on
there more
Ray's
that-
desk, just
Okay.
that we haven't gotten
Did
through
you want
them,
them in there? Okay.
so, okay. So, next is consider request by Stephen Di Giovanni of As Darkness Falls Paranormal to conduct an investigation of the old Plymouth Hospital property. Ms. Green?
Yes, members of the board. So, Mr. Di Giovanni reached out to me. He is the owner of As Darkness Falls Paranormal. They wish to conduct an investigation over at the old Plymouth County property. It's just to investigate the grounds to see if they could find any evidence of paranormal activity. They did put forth what their objective is and an itinerary. I did forward this to our police chief, and he basically does not have particular issue as long as there is no damage to the property. And that's about it. I really don't know if there's any history or anything of any type of paranormal activity at the Plymouth County Hospital, but I guess based on the history of the property itself, they will have some cameras on the property, some flashlights, because they'll be looking around obviously at night. But they don't anticipate, there won't be any damage to any of the property. They're just to film and look to see.
Ms. Kemmer?
I am a little bit concerned. We've got the food pantry up there, and I want to make sure that people's privacy is preserved. And so to the extent that they're going to be anywhere in that vicinity, I would ask that they not have cameras there, because people want to go to the food pantry and not necessarily have everybody in the neighborhood know that they're going to the food pantry. And along that same line, I would be a little bit concerned about really any cameras at the food pantry, because we really don't necessarily want the security of the food pantry to be,
Yeah.
have
I
any
think
kind
that's
of an issue.
reasonable, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm hoping that their intention, although they didn't say this, I'm hoping their intention is sort of to be where the old hospital used to be, which I have heard rumors of paranormal activity. I don't know whether it's true or not, but, it kind of makes sense. A lot of people passed away there. So, that would be the only caveat that I would
Yeah, and I
ask.
think that's reasonable to say, to stay away from the food pantry building. But if they wanted to go to the old paint shack or down to the incinerator or wherever,
Yeah.
I think that's
I think
that's
Mr.
fine.
Fletcher had.
Maybe we can give them the hours of when the food
I
pantry's
mean,
open and not have them film during that
Right.
times when people are coming in.
Yeah.
I think most of the investigation would take place at night anyway,
Yeah,
when the
if
food
they
pantry
say an
is
hour
not
before
open.
dusk.
Yeah,
And they're only gonna be there 3 or 4 hours.
right.
Yeah, so if they could just kind of, if we could just, I think Mr. Fletcher had his hand up.
Mr. Fletcher?
I just want you guys to be aware that townspeople typically aren't allowed in there. It's posted. There's also cameras as well, to keep people from actually going in that area. Just want to bring it to your attention.
Thank you. All right, so we're looking for a motion to allow the request or not to allow the request?
To allow the request with the, with the caveat that they avoid particularly Tuesday nights and Friday mornings. It sounds like they're gonna be dusk, so Tuesday night when we'd have, we would have folks going to pick up. And that, if you, Lisa, maybe if you could just explain, like, we don't want the security of that building to be impaired at all. There are cameras, et cetera, et
They can't
cetera,
film
but,
it at all. They
Yeah.
can't go near that.
Near the food pantry building.
Yeah.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
The only question
other
I have
discussion?
is, what's a spirit box?
well, you'd have to show up to find out, Joe.
I would
Wait
like
till
to
you-
have a display of equipments, maybe,
You gotta wait till it comes out on YouTube.
I guess so.
Well, I wanted to make an amendment on it.
I was gonna get a presentation.
Yeah.
Or both of them, both of them.
Yeah.
So, all right.
They'll get sucked in, me and Laura will be the only ones here.
So with that being said, we have a motion, a second, all in favor? 5-0. All right, discussion about the light control property. Ms. Green?
Yes, so we, as we know, that property was donated to the town back in 2019, I believe. It was the former light control company. It has been sitting vacant since all that time, and actually, the buildings are still standing. There's 2 buildings on the property. The property has kind of become a hangout for people who have been breaking into the buildings, actually holding bonfires inside the buildings, which is extremely dangerous since they're surrounded by very dry vegetation. We've had some interest in the buildings, in the property, people who either would like to purchase it or lease it. We do need to go through a procurement-type process for municipal property disposition. Our town council is willing to help us with that because it's kind of a complicated process. I just wanted to get the board's feelings and thoughts on basically what their thoughts is on this. We know by the donation deed that there's a lot of restrictions that follow this. For instance, the property can't be used for any type of residence, so there won't be any developers interested in the property. You cannot put any type, apartments, condominiums, you cannot put a hotel, you cannot put any type of dorms, retirement facility. You can't put not transient or non-transient facility. Hospital, medical facilities. You cannot put a daycare there, a playground, or have any type of outdoor recreation. So people who are looking for open space, you can't do anything with the property. You cannot have anything where more than, that's occupied by children. You can't have any spaces in that area. Additional restrictions is you can't have any wells put in. You can't use any of the groundwater for drinking purposes. You cannot do any non-commercial gardening. So there's a lot of restrictions on this deed to make this property really undesirable for any type of developers. The parties that are interested are looking at the buildings as they are for a particular purpose. But we do need to go through the process. It would be interested to get this back on the tax rolls. It could bring jobs to the town instead of sitting there being an abandoned property that is a fire risk right now.
Because as people are breaking into it and creating bonfires, we witnessed the bonfire area inside one of the buildings. They're also playing target practice with the windows in the other one, so you walk in the buildings, the floor is covered with glass. So it's a hazard to the town right now, so it would be good to see it back on the tax rolls and bringing in revenue and jobs to the town. Any type of disposition on this property does have to go through town meeting in May. So right now is a good time to start the whole process, because it is going to take a little bit to get the bidding process developed and get it out there and see what kind of bids. We can go through the process, and everything is contingent on town meeting approval of disposition of this property.
So, Ms. Green, I just have a couple of questions for you. I know that you're aware that that property was at first considered to be a space for a future highway garage building. Have you discussed this with Mr. Shea?
Yes, he's well aware that there's a party interested in purchasing the property,
All right.
or leasing the property.
So with that being said, we have the need for highway, that we need to do something with them. And my question, I guess, is, have you had a discussion with Mr. Shea? There's the highway building feasibility committee. I just want to make sure that we're communicating with everyone that is a party to the property.
Yes, like I said, he was actually out there with us. He had actually walked around the property. He knows that there's a party interested. I don't know if a new highway department is ever going to see the light in that particular location. There's a lot of work to be done in that, and I don't know if the town has an appetite to fund that type of project right now.
Mr. Mitchell?
The problem that I see is we did a feasibility study for that property that we're only probably 70% done, $365,000 for the highway department. So I think before we make any decisions, we need to determine whether the highway department's gonna go up there or not. And you may be right, maybe it won't be, but I think before we exercise this option, we need to, for our employees, we need to see if it's feasible to put a highway department there, and then if it's not, then, maybe go to town meeting. The highway building committee, we haven't met in over a year. We stopped pretty much kind of when we knew we had an override coming and we knew that the cost was starting to increase, so we kind of stopped. Since then, there's been actually a couple employees that were on the committee that have retired. So I'm not even sure as we sit here now whether we have enough for a quorum, but I think that the highway building committee needs to meet first, and discuss this and kind of see where we're at before we start making plans for that property. And the other thing I would look at is, on the deed to see if there's a municipal, disclosure on there where it says that, I thought there was something on there that said that this building has got to be used for municipal purposes.
Well, it does say to use for general municipal purposes, but that, again, that's something we could go to town meeting and ask for that restriction to be removed. I just thought where we have somebody that's looking to develop the property, bring in a business, bring jobs to the community, and bring revenue to the community, that I wanted to propose it.
Yeah, no, that part
to the board.
I totally get, but I think that we still can't dismiss the fact that we need a highway department, and our employees need to go somewhere, So I don't wanna just kick that aside and say, hey, forget the highway department and let's keep moving forward. I don't wanna do that. I think I think we're obligated to our employees to figure out something, whether it's rebuild over there. I don't know what the answer to that question is, but
Ms.
I
Kevin?
think that needs to be done before we do this.
I agree. So Mr. Mitchell and others, have put in a significant amount of time, and the town has invested money in that. And I think you do need to see that process through to figure out what is the price tag we're looking at. In my mind, and there's no denying that the space that our highway folks are in is not acceptable. I don't think it's acceptable for us to have our employees in that space. I mean, for Pete's sake, the building's literally falling apart at the seams, like I'm not even like literally busting at the seams. So that said, in my mind, I'm wondering if if we're able to interpret that deed and figure out the process, and again, take it before the town meeting and make sure voters, ultimately are the ones deciding. But in my mind, I know at one point, Kenny, you had told us that we might be looking, and I'm spitballing, and I'm sure this has changed because material costs and supply chains have completely blown everything up now, but between 5 and 7 million. And then that doesn't even include the cleanup and takedown of the old building, right? So we're looking at somewhere between, conservatively, 5 to maybe, let's say like 10 million, which completely spitballing, for the soup to nuts, cleaning up, moving them into the new building. And I'm wondering, do we actually end up getting those highway guys in a building by somehow making a deal on that light control property and getting money? If your feasibility thing doesn't end up, you know what I mean? Because that's a revenue stream that we don't have right now. And I try to picture ourselves going before town meeting and saying, we need, and even conservatively, $5 million for a new highway building, and not getting laughed out of the town meeting.
Right.
So I'm just thinking, like, I totally agree, I think you've got to see that process through. I like the idea of looking at our assets and thinking, how can we leverage our existing assets and get some revenue? Because we all know we need it, and we don't want to have to do any overrides. I mean, I can't promise we're never gonna do them, but certainly not in the foreseeable future. And I think that this gives us a good opportunity to maybe kill two birds with one stone.
No, I think Lisa's absolutely on the right track.
Yeah.
As far as, thinking outside the box. But I do think that we gotta look at the highway. And the other thing, when you mentioned town meeting, there's two aspects to this. Town meeting voted for the $365,000 feasibility study, and then at a different town meeting previous, they voted for the building. So those are two things that would have to be overcome at town meeting separately, completely separate.
So, go ahead, Mr. Hickey.
Alls I was gonna say is that, Lisa brought this forward, and between her and town council, do an RFP. And would obviously go to the highest bidder, or maybe just this bidder. But it's gonna take months and months and months to get this done. So my thinking from what Lisa was saying was, if she starts it now, it'll get done in time for town meeting in May. And that way we would have something to compare it to, instead of saying, okay, we've done this already, with the 365,000 in the building. Okay, well, here's an option, and we'll be ready in October. If she starts this now, it would be ready in May, and even with an RFP, you wouldn't have to accept it if you didn't like the bid.
That's true, but Kenny, do you feel like that's a reason, through you, Mr.
Sure.
Chair? Do you feel as though, I know you've got to resuscitate and figure out who you even have on that committee,
that's-
but do you feel as though you could liven it back up again and start marching towards that?
That's a
or-
great question, Laura. I mean, absolutely, would try, absolutely, right away.
So one thing I wanted to also throw in too, I've seen the schematics that you shared with me about the highway building and all that stuff. And the nice part about that is it's a fairly easy building of what you want to do.
Yes.
It's
And it
just a
can go
giant
anywhere.
rectangle and it can go anywhere.
it can go
Yes.
So realistically, I think all the effort that has gone into this RFP wasn't specific to this octagon building.
Yep.
It's a rectangle.
Right.
That's an easy.
You can take that building on the piece of paper and move it anywhere.
Right, so, the big thing was for the highway committee to figure out space, needs,
Yeah.
wants, and needs. And I think that you pretty much
Yeah,
accomplished
so
that
we
where
would
you
have to
are.
look back at that article and see, did it mean just the light control building itself, or,
Right.
I just think there's a few things that we need to look at before we
And-
move forward.
Then the other thing too, I will mention too, is chatting with Jim Armstrong, of course,
Okay.
the wizard on everything. We were chatting about energy consumption and everything in our energy committee, and we were talking about the new highway building, because John Murray is on the committee.
Yes, that's correct.
So it was.
And John's very eager to get going.
He's
believe me.
very eager, very eager. So with that being said, we were just talking about what it would cost to renovate the current building right there. And sometimes as an environmentalist, I always hate to say this, but sometimes it's just easier and cheaper and more environmentally sound to knock it down and start from new. And this might be one of those situations where it might be cheaper and more efficient to just
But
start
that's a
from
good point,
scratch.
you're making me feel a little bit better about the money we've spent. Do you think you could leverage the work you've done, even though you were thinking about the light control building and
Right.
footprint? Do you think that the work that you've done in that feasibility stuff could be kind of like used on the
I
existing
think it
footprint?
could, as long as it's allowed, you know?
Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure as far as the technicality is, when it was approved, was it just for a Hawks Ave? You
Uh-huh,
know?
yep.
I know Bruce is waving,
Mr.
so you
Young.
might have something.
I want to say specifically, I looked those articles up tonight, the $467,000 that you get approved at town meeting, specifically for the plans for that building, were for Hawks Avenue, which specifically said that for a highway building at Hawks Avenue. And I want to remind you what the guy from Hubble said in 2015, when he came before the town meeting to explain the technicalities of the meeting, and he won the town meeting. He says, we can approve this, and we will donate this to you. But keep in mind, the longer that building sits idle
Yes.
over there, the worse things are gonna get, exactly as Lisa said, people are getting
Yep.
into the building, causing damage over there. So the longer you wait for that building, and that building was a nice building, I went in it myself, I toured both of those buildings, they were fantastic. And of course, they do need some fixing up to conform to what you want for a highway building. But specifically, that building that land was taken and approved for municipal purposes only, okay? So, if you want to put an RFP for Impress, I mean, you can't just do it for Impress, you got to send out
Right.
an RFP, and you gotta basically give it to private industry. You can set a limitation of the minimum you'll take, of the maximum you'll take for it. But but that was just the purpose of the 467 was specifically for Hawks Avenue, and the building was accepted specifically for municipal purposes. So if you're gonna change any of that, you gotta go to town meeting, the town meeting has to vote by a 2/3 vote because it's land and it's property. To change that purpose and to change the, whatever you had that, whatever you got the plans for, which said Hawks Avenue.
And we're also in contract with the, an engineering firm
Yeah, exactly.
to do that, so you just can't walk away from that. So there's a few things that have to be looked at.
You resurrect that committee, and get some volunteers to be on it, and move forward with the Hawks Avenue project.
I just feel like we need all of the information to make an informed decision, right? Like, we need
Yeah,
all of you,
definitely do.
like your thing to see its way through. And then I am curious, I know it was a particular party that came forward, but I'm also really interested, is there somebody else out there that we might not even be aware of that would be interested in using that property? Despite the fact it's in a rapid state of deterioration and, has become an attractive nuisance, I think the location could be really attractive for some, I've heard people talk about like sports domes and stuff like that, so, you've heard the same thing. So, there may be somebody out there that we're not even thinking of that's like, you know what, this is the perfect location for us.
So there is one thing though on the deed as well, is it really limits the use of the water, the groundwater there. You can't use the water for drinking purposes, for humans or animals. So you can't use a sports complex there because you can't use the water. Again, it's really limited because of the groundwater. There must be still some contamination on the property because this deed limits the groundwater. You can't put any wells.
It's got town water over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got town water,
Oh,
so
okay,
water,
all right.
water wouldn't be an issue.
It said no wells, you can't sink
Yeah,
any
and the
wells.
contaminants
Yeah.
are on the property that
On the other
abuts
side?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
All right, so I guess we'd have to get.
I think the first thing,
some,
Lisa, that I would do,
information.
well, first thing for me is form the committee back, get the committee back right away. But for you, I would send that deed off to Kate and see
Oh,
what.
they have it already.
What's that gonna allow us to be able to do if we do change what we want, the usage for that property?
Yeah. I've already sent it to Kate, and I've already had conversations with Ben Taylor, who is, he is the attorney that works with disposition of public property. So I've already got all the instructions. So they have the deed, they've already looked at it, and I know we have to go through town meeting.
Right, okay.
to make the changes. There would have to be zoning
Back to you in a
changes.
second.
So it is a long process. It is a long process. As Laura said, let's see what else is out there. In the meantime, too, we have a party that's very interested, but they're not going to wait forever. They're actively looking for other properties to expand their operation, and they may move along to somewhere else, and Hanson could lose out.
Mr. Cohen,
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, you spoke a lot about the uses that are restricted for that property. I'm sure there probably is a lot of other creative uses that could be used for the property, correct?
I don't know, but I just know what the deed is saying with the restrictions.
Yeah, I was just saying, it sounds like your opinion is just going forward in a certain direction. But anyway, in regards to the deed, is that something that can be posted onto the website for everyone in town to see? Or do you have to come into the office to get that?
This is available in the assessor's office.
Okay, because it's town-owned property.
It's
so
probably,
anyways,
Town-owned
it's
property.
probably
You
on
can
the
pull it up on
registry.
Plymouth County
Yes.
Registry of Deeds, too.
It's got registered deeds,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's also available right in the assessor's
Okay,
office.
great, thank
Yeah.
you.
Can I-
The party wasn't interested in the property?
Ms. Green did.
Ms. Green, I don't know, can you divulge that, who is interested, or?
Impressed LLC is interested in the property, but we have to go through the process, we have to go through a procurement process with advertising and things like that for the property.
Oh, yeah, so were they taking on further property as well?
They went out to the property is open for anybody to walk around, so they went out to the property and looked at it.
Well, you need a key to get inside.
Not really.
No, it's.
No, you
Don't
can
see
just
that on
walk right
public
around and walk
television.
right in. I mean, the people are breaking into the place.
Yeah.
You can get into that, this,
You can get right into it. They prop the doors up
So-
with big 2x4s.
It was, it's been a problem since then.
Yeah. You can walk right into that property.
That police don't,
It's way out, it's kind of out in
They
the middle of
do,
nowhere.
but
So,
they can only do so much.
I mean, how many doors are there? A couple doors, right?
Well, I mean, we don't want to say how the sausage is made necessarily, but
So-
it's, yeah.
so just to move the agenda along, I think maybe, Ms. Green, if we could have, secure that building. That'd be
Start
great.
there, start there.
Yeah, let's
Secure the
let's start there. So,
I was, you just,
so,
How do we know it's even people?
that's a
So-
good point.
so just to try to rope everything back in so we get out before 10. So,
I'm leaving at 8.
so with that being said, what's the direction of the board? Does the board
think we
feel
need a vote.
comfortable? Does the board feel comfortable with Lisa moving forward?
I think we move in
Or-
parallel. Kenny continues with his path that he's
Okay.
doing, and Lisa continues with her path, and then we circle back once we've gathered all of the facts,
Yep.
and we make an informed decision about what's the next best step.
Perfect.
There's not enough information right now to make an informed decision. I think that I'm just curious, just sitting here thinking about it, you all might know more than me, but even, debt exclusion bonds that we have that might be coming to a close in the near future is going to free up cash for different projects. All that stuff is important to
Yes.
recognize whenever you're trying to put together some project. I would also just caution that we're not trying to fit the building for a third party that would have to apply for an RFP. Even whether or not this is a good person or not, it's a private company. It feels a little icky trying to.
No, the RFP is just gonna be,
It's a
Yeah,
request for
no, I know, but we're
proposals
talking
that will
about
go
one
out.
person
It's
in that
advertised.
context, so I just want to say, it'll be equal opportunity for all. I mean, we just want to be clear about that, because we're, yeah,
I'm sure we do. I think the
yeah.
town has general liability for
Yeah.
our properties.
but those are just some of the things I just wanted to put out and think about,
You're
because
right, we
there's
need
just
more
lots of moving
information.
parts. Yeah, yeah.
All right, so with that being said, I feel the board is comfortable to move on, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so the next item is to consider,
Yeah, can we have a board, do we need a vote?
do we
so
need,
moved.
Second.
moved and seconded? All in favor?
I don't know what we're voting on, though. What are we voting
That
for?
think you
Lisa
need a vote, but it's
continue
okay.
to pursue, putting together an RFP and researching legally with Kate what the deed restrictions are
I'm
and.
sure you're writing all that down.
I'll reach out to the
That'll
highway
be for the
director as well.
YouTube video later on.
All right, so the next item is request from Recreation Commission to use the McQuon parking lot for bus transportation to Camp Kawani, for the Camp Kawani Halloween event on October 30th, with October 31st as a rain date.
So moved.
Moved and seconded?
Second.
All in favor? 5-0. All right, old business, to ratify deputy police chief contract. So, Ms. Green,
So within your packet, you will find a copy of the deputy police chief, his contract. It's in here somewhere. That basically outlines the conditions of his employment.
Nothing's changed since the last time we discussed this, right?
Nothing has changed on it, no, it's just kind of been sitting, waiting for the unions to all settle their contracts before he came forward with this.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the contract as presented.
Second.
moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye, all right, excellent. So we have no appointments tonight. One-day liquor licenses, I'll entertain a motion to
So
approve.
Second.
All right, perfect. All in favor? 5-0. Okay. Town administrators report, Ms. Green.
Yes, so members of the board, as you know, we had the Great Pumpkin Classic Car Show on Sunday, October 10th. It was very successful. We had just over 200 show cars show up for the day. We were actually getting worried we were going to run out of room. We had great attendance from many folks, lots of kids dressed in costumes. Most of the people brought candy. We had the costume contest. We had some really special cars show up. We had Santa's fire engine from the North Pole. That was quite surprising. And everybody had a great time. All the proceeds were raised just about $5,200 that are split between Whitman Hanson Dollars for Scholars and Whitman Hanson Will. And we're already looking for a bigger venue for next year.
Kudos, well done, Ms. Green.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of work, a lot of planning, but well worth it. Community compact grants, so I'm happy to report that after our discussion, I did apply for 2 community compact grants, and we were awarded $12,500 for each grant. The first grant is for the town so that we can conduct a compensation and classification study. And it will do development of wage and classification, so it will cover job descriptions and wages with all the surrounding areas and put a chart together for us. The second grant is for economic development for the development of an economic development manual, which will be put together for businesses who are interested in settling in Hanson. It'll go over the process for permitting, zoning, and just provide a lot of information for businesses once it's complete. So total between the 2 grants is $25,000 with $12,500 for each project.
Again, excellent work on that.
All right. I was able to complete gathering documents for our insurance audit for our workman's comp, which required basically a lot of work and cooperation from all the other departments. So I'd like to reach out and thank all the departments for gathering the documents for me so that I could put everything together and submit it to the auditors. I was able to put that together with a very limited amount of time, but get it to them by the deadline so that the report was submitted on October 14th, which was the deadline. So we were able to complete that within the deadline. And I just wanted to give the board an update. Now that it is me, myself, and I in the office, the additional the tasks that I've been doing, just in case. So since the executive assistant's departure, I now handle all the payroll. I pay all the bills. We are also currently recruiting for 5 positions, which would be the town treasurer collector, municipal assistant, the administrative assistant to the town planner, the executive assistant to the board of selectmen, town hall custodian, and is also a opening in the highway department. So we're actively recruiting, so I'm collecting resumes, going through all of that. I am also doing turnovers. I am learning to pay the bills. I'm putting together the agenda for our meetings. I'm collecting all the agenda documents. I'm also working with citizens, working with trees and train horns and different requests and complaints, department requests, answering the phones, public records requests, and anything, managing the grant applications, the grant funds, the projects, and just time off requests. So everything is coming my way, and it's me, myself, and I handling that. We have our new town planner coming on board on Monday, so that we'll be working with him, getting that trained. So just to give the board an idea of the amount of work that I'm now undertaking, does not allow me to take a lunch. We have meetings, and people need to see me here and there. I bring my lunch to work, eat in the office all day, and I basically don't leave here from the time I get here to the end of the day.
Mr. Chair, I am concerned
Yep.
with the sustainability of this. And I'm wondering, are we able to get some temp help? Is there something short-term? I know long-term will, of course, fill the position and, things will hopefully get, better, but short-term, I don't think it's our intention to, on top of all of this, burn Miss Green out.
Right.
What can we do to help? Can we get a temp agency to help answer phones, do some of these more ministerial things that, that I don't think your skills necessarily are best used doing those things. I'm just wondering, what can we do to help?
Right, and that's an interesting thought about, go ahead,
I mean,
Ms. Green.
it's hard because I'm learning a lot of it on my end as well, so it's hard for me to teach somebody when I'm just learning it. But, I mean, all of the departments have really stepped up to help out, and I really appreciate all the help and support. But I'm going to do the best I can, and hopefully it won't take too long to get somebody in to help out. But Julie, our volunteer, our elder volunteer, comes in one day a week and helps with filing and answering the phones, which is a huge help. But
Ms. Green, can you kind of just quickly run through where we are on the status of these 5 vacancies?
Yes.
And can we just start off, did we post for the
Yes.
administrative assistant position?
So it's already posted on the website, it's already in the Whitman Hanson Express this week and next week. Application deadline is next Friday, the 29th. And the other positions, the same. They're all in the Express. We are gathering, they're on the website, so applications coming in, so as well, though they are the 29th as well for the deadline, so.
And I just want to confirm too, just so people don't say, well, we just had an override, and now we have 5 vacancies at Town Hall. These positions, these are all existing positions that
Existing
are
positions.
open due to, personal choice or whatever it may be, retirement. These are no new positions.
These are not new positions, no, these are existing positions,
Thank you.
yes. And if I may circle back on the car show, one thing I wanted to do as well is I just wanted to thank all the town departments that worked that day. Our police, fire, our highway department, Whitman Hanson, Ernie Sandlin with the facilities allowed use of the Indian Head restrooms. So I want to shout out to all those departments that helped make everybody safe that day as well. So.
Well, thank you very much, and great job with the car show, as Ms. Kemet said, the grants, and just kind of keeping your head above water, most importantly. And I know that you and I always talk, and I'm always telling you to take your lunch break. So, but please don't get burnt out, and let us know if there's anything that we can assist you with as well.
Well, fortunately, I can take all my frustrations out on the drag track over the weekends.
And Selectman Hickey's available too if you need someone to answer phones.
Why do you have to
Just once in a while if you get backed up.
Really?
I don't mind, John.
You want to go outside?
So, with that being said, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn over to wage and personnel first.
Wage and personnel, yes.
Want to say the executive stuff or wait till after Joe's done?
Well, we'll reconvene in Selectmen, I'll read it off and go from there.
Second, I'm not sure if you're second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? All right, Mr. Weeks.
All right.
Just a point of order.
Yep.
Are we going to run afoul, since we've actually posted that meeting specifically to begin at 8 PM, the wage and personnel meeting?
I think the
Time is it
clock.
now?
It's
Well,
about
it's
5 minutes of.
7:54 right now, so.
That clock's wrong.
Yeah, okay.
So,
We're
Yeah, it's
pretty
on my
close.
seat right now.
Okay.
so 5-minute recess real quick?
5-minute recess?
Yeah, let's do
Perfect.
that.
Thank you.
18th at 8 PM, Hanson Wage and Personnel Board Meeting, Selectmen Meeting Room, Town Hall. Wage and Personnel Board Meeting, vote to implement 2% COLA increase to wage and personnel positions and other non-union personnel positions effective July 1st, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? All right,
Sorry, who seconded it?
I did.
Liar.
and then, so it's 5-0. And then, next on the agenda, discuss executive assistant salary increase.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we can actually pass over that.
Okay.
I was able to speak with town accountant to learn what we had in that line for that position, so we don't need to discuss it.
Okay, so we can pass over?
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. The only thing I would just add to this is one of the things that was apparent at town meeting that I want to put on the next wage and personnel agenda, if we can, I don't want to make it too quick, is I want to go over all of the different salary ranges and make sure that they're actually appropriate, because we had to make a significant number of amendments on town meeting floor to make sure that they were actually accurate. So I want to make sure if we can reach out to town department heads, any interested parties or committees that oversee some of these, please ask them to take a quick look at it, make any type of adjustments as needed, and at the next wage and personnel meeting, I want to be able to ratify them.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, through you, is that something that the technical assistance grant, I forget what it's called.
The wage and classifications.
Yeah, wage and
Yes.
classification. So Lisa had worked on a grant from Community Compact to help, and we'll actually have someone else come in and go through it. So maybe that would be a good thing, once it's complete, to review.
Can they do it with a relative quick turnaround time? Because the reason why I wanted to have the town departments, everyone do it, is because I wanted them to be a little bit more involved in the wage and personnel oversight. So there was a method to the madness. Obviously, it makes sense to use a grant if that makes sense. I mean, that's great information. I was hoping to just get them more involved in the entire process as a whole, just to kind of get them talking, get them coming in. So either way, it's fine. I just wanted, what do you think for a timeline to try and get this sorted?
Well, we just got the grant, just got the notification of the grant. So I have the contracts that I have to sign and get into them, which I have one done and I'm doing the other one.
Okay.
Once we need to wait for the state to sign it, and then I can begin requesting proposals from companies, because it's over the $10,000 threshold, to solicit at least 3 bids for the project. So it's probably 6 months or so
Okay.
out, so.
Okay. So we feel confident that the things that are listed on here are actually accurate? Because the reason why I'm getting at is because we can wait for that long to kind of complete the project, but in terms of looking for typos and any type of misplaced numbers, which is really what I'm trying to get at, I'd like to just have that kind of put together sooner than later. And I don't have all that information. I'm more than happy to try to find a way to get it, but if you feel like looking at that.
Absolutely, I can reach out to the department heads and just have them give me the updates.
Just a quick one.
You're just looking for a sanity check.
That really is what
Yeah.
it comes down to,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you very much. That's assuming that this board is okay with that and doing all those things? I'm assuming you're fine with that for the most part? Okay, nothing too
Yeah, and I think it's
controversial.
your intention to try to have that cleaned up so that at town meeting, if we have to make any changes, or, we've got accurate information, and if any changes need to be made, that they're made in advance of town meeting and presented at town meeting.
Well, in addition to that, we've had many people come to us, and we're working off of numbers that we're assuming are to be accurate, and it's hard to do a wage and personnel meeting if we don't know if the numbers are actually accurate. And it's
Yeah.
hard to learn on the fly. So, okay, any other discussion?
Just one other thing, I would like to, and I know I've mentioned this before, but I would like to make sure that prospectively, that we are consistently, whenever we are talking about any kind of a contract, a wage and personnel issue, that we always have competitive analysis of the surrounding towns for like positions with the same demographics. Because it seems to always come as a surprise when we ask this question, and it's like.
That's fair.
So.
Fair? All right. Any other discussion? All right,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
go. All right, motion and seconded. All those in favor? All right, we are done.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm looking for a motion to enter into executive session to conduct strategy sessions and preparations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to wit, fire chief position discussion and town administrator.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Mr. Weeks.
Aye.
Ms. Kemet?
Aye.
Matt, aye.
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 And we are now in executive session. Thank you.